Morning, everyone. Welcome to a festive-ish coffee talk. I will say it now. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
It is December. We can use that
you were
expression.
avoiding it until
past Chris's threshold.
There's part of me that early on was just like, oh, it's still November. Like when we did a coffee talk and it wasn't even the 25th yet or somewhere around there, right? That week, I'm like, let's at least. But anyways, Merry Christmas season of preparation. And because we don't have a Merry Advent. We need to do that. We need what is a good Advent greeting?
Yeah.
You know?
it can't be merry or happy. It has to be something else.
No, you're right. That's a good point.
Cheerful Advent.
Cheerful Advent? Cheerful Advent to you and yours. Anyways, this week, welcome to Coffee Talk. We want to look back at the service. Speaking of Advent, you've been walking us through Advent in maybe a different feel to it, right? It's all of the expectation, all of the the usual sorts of things that we get ready to have come, but in a slightly different consideration. So this week it was the gift of service, and Okay, so as I've been wrestling with this, and a question's coming, there's a question coming. The thing I think I've been wrestling with is this. There's two ways I got to put this down. I'm on like the wobbliest bench, people. I don't want to spill over myself. Okay, so.
And you're an active talker, which is great.
I know, but I haven't taken a single sip of this yet, and it's really full. Right? We often, I think, as followers of Jesus, we want to follow him well. We want to honor him. He comes along and says later in life, you got to take up your cross and follow me, right? To lose your life is to find it. But at the same time, I think we can very easily become paralyzed by the thought that it's got to be all or nothing. That if I'm going to follow Jesus, if I'm really going to get into this serving thing, I've got to absolutely abandon everything I am. How have you guys tried to find a realistic place of serving like Jesus, but yet I know you guys, all three of us, we own a home, right? We're not like, we haven't abandoned everything and gone out and lived in the desert like monks, which some people have done in church history in terms of following Jesus. But so how have you found that realistic, practical balance of serving like Jesus, but yet, living a realistic life in Western society in 2022? So, that's maybe a heavy question. You guys are like, wow, it's
a big one.
This is how you get out of hosting coffee for a month. No, I'm kidding, of course. But I feel like that's maybe what people need to wrestle with in all of that. Because it's very easy just to sort of give up and go, you know what, can't be done. That's impractical. Jesus didn't mean it. It's all hyperbole. I'm just going to, I'll drop my $5 in the Salvation Army kettle as I go by, and then that's it. That's the extent of my service.
Yeah.
But Jesus calls us to certainly more than that.
So I just want to acknowledge the goodness of that question first. Well done, Chris. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But more than that, inherent in that question to me, as I'm just pondering it, is that we want to have a life figured out. We want to have serving figured out. We want to have everything figured out. And I think what you acknowledged in that was, how are you wrestling with it? And I would say that's the first step. We start wrestling with it. I don't think you will figure it out completely. I think you wrestle, you pray, and you start to obey what is revealed, right? And I know I'm not answering it yet, but I want to kind of say that some of this stuff that we learn in the Bible, we struggle or we talk about is really the wrestling is what God wants us to do. I think, part of it at least, like we are inadequate. We don't have all the answers. We can't have all the answers, but he does. And so we come to him and I think maybe the first thing is is learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortableness of that. Like we've come through modernity where everybody thought they had the answer to everything, and we've realized that's not the answer. Like there isn't an answer for everything. Like humanly speaking, like God is the one that has all the answers, and so we have to. So that's one part of it that comes up for me. I won't dominate any more than that at this point. What's coming up for you?
So somebody even a couple of years ago, as we were working through some parts of 1 Corinthians and stuff like that, and they see all that Paul is doing and how he kind of just said, I am going and I'm doing it and I'm going to do all these missionary journeys and I just, abandon everything kind of, which is also funny because that, same thing Peter said, we've left everything for you. And we were going through that series and somebody came to us as pastors and said, like, if you look at what Paul is doing, if we're following that example, it's impossible. You're right? Like, it's worse off and it's more rude and more ungospel-like for me to fully jump into what, if I was to literally say, okay, everything that's being laid out as an example for me, if I was to just do that, it would actually be less of me showing the gospel to my family, to my friends, to the people that rely on me, to my society. And yet you would kind of have that sense of I'm doing the Lord's work because I'm out on the road and I'm doing the thing. I also had a conversation with somebody a couple days ago who said, I'm trying to find my wheelhouse, and I don't like that word, and trying to figure out what exactly that is, because I have this thing, and I said to that person, that's actually what God has given you as a gift, because that's where He's going to show His glory. So I think it a lot more comes down to growing where you're planted, and I think in this case, serving wherever you're planted. So like, if you are the Prime Minister of Canada, you are called to serve the people of Canada the same way that somebody who is working the bathroom cleaning at Walmart is called to serve the people of West Kelowna in the same kind of way. Both of those jobs are a serve where you're planted, but they're going to get very different recognition and all that. But if you jump in and serve and do exactly what you are called to do, which is, I think, what the three of us have been called to. Like, I feel like I've been called to this position, this ministry. I've felt a specific calling on my life at one point. And I feel like the more I do it, the more I feel like I am doing the Lord's work in my life, but also I need to serve in little and big ways along the way as I fulfill that as well, right?
Yeah. Well, two things as you talk, and I was hoping I could not say anything, but promptings. Two things. First off, as someone who frequents the Walmart bathrooms, if you're the cleaner, thank you.
Yes.
It's great.
Noticed.
It is noticed, man. The amount of times I'm like, okay, I'm just running in for a couple things, and a kid's like, Dad, I gotta go. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, that aside, I think what's easy to forget is that everybody has a calling.
Yeah.
We sometimes think that it's only missionaries and pastors. They're called by God, and so we'll support them. No. If you are following Jesus, you have a calling on your life. It might be dad or mom. That's a calling, right? That's God has provided, whether it's physical children, nieces and nephews, whatever. There's another generation, a younger generation that you have impact on. That's a calling. You need to pursue faithful development of that, whatever that looks like, based on what you're saying. Kind of the word that keeps coming up also in all of that is talents.
Yeah.
Right? As we think back on what is the parable of the talents all about, it's that the Master has given each of us something to steward well, to use in service for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all of us have a talent, all of us have a calling, and when those things come together, I think we find what it is that God has prepared us to do.
Pairing those with a sense of humility, and I think that's where that sense of serving comes in.
Right.
And I think that we have to be careful too that, okay, this is somebody else's job, my job is this. So for example, I live in a community where I have neighbors all around me.
Yeah.
I think that's part of planted. I'm planted there to be
Yes.
a blessing to those people. So I serve, and we're blessed to be a blessing. We've talked about that over the summer. We had a series on that, and I keep coming back to that, even in this service thing, and it's weighed even more and more heavy on me lately. Is how am I blessing? Because when I bless, then I'm inviting to Jesus, right? Like the blessing. So to say my talents and my gifting without saying where I'm put, like the people around me, I'm uniquely placed there for those people. So how am I blessing those people, right? Like how can I? So not to say, oh, that's somebody else's job because I'm not gifted in that. No, we're all supposed to bless whoever's around us. So the planting part, we got to remember. Now, where I serve in my work, that's more talent and everything coming together. So where we go, where we work is really important. Our family that we've part of, but I guess my caution is, don't use gifting and talents as an excuse to say I'm not, right?
Right. No,
and that's, I don't hear you. I don't think you're saying that.
No, absolutely
but it's
not.
easy
I'm
to
actually
come to that.
wanting to think of it even broader because I think in your neighborhood, your particular property is part of your talent. Like talent isn't just exclusively my skills.
Good, yeah. So you're defining the talent.
I'm defining it in a broader sense. It's what you've been given to steward. So your geographic location is part of your talent.
Good, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's your neighborhood.
Really like
so
that,
where are we going? The people that live in your house is part of what you are called to serve. Or the group of people you're called to serve. It's part of, I think, what is in that. And so
sorry, because when you say talent, I'm thinking, oh, I'm really good at this.
Right, but this is a great example because we often take a really small box, right? And we think this is my talent box.
We open up the box. What?
And we've got
out of the box.
Wait, we got to get out of the box. Come Sunday. Anyway, it's great. We're not ready to segue yet, Jeff. Come on.
Sorry.
No, but that's all of it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the what are my and I'll use evangelism as a classic one. How many times have I heard people say, "I'm not an evangelist. I'm not an evangelist. I'm not going to talk to that person."
We're all called to do it, but
yes, but some will excel at it, and that's where I think.
And I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
I think blessing. We should focus more on blessing because that is part that leads to evangelism. So I've been so focused on this evangelism word, and I'm shifting to blessing more. Like how am I blessing? And so in my blessing people. Evangelism, like telling about Jesus, will naturally come out when we develop a relationship through the blessing. And instead of trying to force something, it's invited. Anyways, I cut you off.
No, it's okay.
You were starting to say something about differences
I want to go somewhere.
Words or something.
I want to go somewhere else because I think not the stage physically, but a different thought in the conversation. Because I think when we start looking for opportunities to bless, really cool things start happening. So we challenged our youth this week we were making cookies for the Boys and Girls Club, for others, and I encouraged everyone, take a tin of cookies and just give it away, someone to bless with no obligation, just to encourage someone. And I haven't got a lot of feedback, but one student fed back to me who, I might see every day. And she's like, Monday night, she's like, I really feel like I should, she started thinking about who to give this to, Well, one of her teachers. Now, she's got more than one teacher, but one teacher in particular, she felt like I should give it to that teacher. Great. Takes it to the teacher. I don't really know this teacher, met this teacher, certainly. Don't know this teacher well. Takes the tin of cookies to the teacher. Teacher's like, what do I keep this for me? And she's whatever. Just, you choose. Do share with your family, whatever. It's yours. No obligation. All right, so Teacher opens it up. What does she see inside? One of the cookies that we happen to make. Why did we make this cookie? Because we only so many ovens. We got to do some other way. So it's a stovetop cookie. Opens up. That's my favorite cookie. Right? Just like little things that it's like, and now this teacher's like, boy, that's really sweet and encouraged. And now is my daughter, no surprise, doing it to get a better grade? No, just because she felt prompted to give it and encourage this teacher. And so, little things can start, I don't even know where necessarily to take, except when we start looking for opportunities to serve by blessing, what we find is the encouragement that comes back. Now, we shouldn't do it for that. And because sometimes it actually comes back decades later, and you just don't know. And so if we're holding on for that moment of encouragement, a little bit of advice, it might never come.
Well, and that's where we're doing it for the Lord, right?
Yeah. Unless we insert the song, the Ray Boltz song, "Thank You for Giving to the Lord," right here, and transition to that, That'd be very timely.
We could.
That's your music background coming out, eh? No, but
you got to do it for the soundtrack.
But I love what you revealed there is like this little thing led to something more, and then as that leads to something more, you'll find some other way to bless, right?
Right,
and,
which led just to a connection, a deeper relationship, which then goes, and it's a teacher-student relationship, so there's limits on it always. It's not the same as when it's you and your neighbor, or you and your, I don't know, the guy who collects garbage on your street, but whatever, whoever that person is that you feel prompted to bless.
Even at work, like, I did have the opportunity to work in the auto industry before transitioning to being a pastor. Changing my career path, I guess, is anyways, accepting that call. When I left, I had a lot of feedback about how I had blessed, and I didn't even know it. Yeah. And it made me realize how important, the being in your work world is to the gospel. Like just being there, and if you work with your whole heart, if you work hard, as to the Lord, and if you look for ways to help your coworkers, and you look for ways to bless, what a ministry! Like you said, we're all, or maybe it was you that said we're all called. Like no matter if we're missionaries, pastors, or whatever. It made me realize, man, I think that calling to be God's presence in a secular workplace is super powerful. There's more opportunity in a lot of ways than we have. Being here sometimes, right? So
There's an irony we'll talk about off camera sometimes. I think I often go back to my experience in the world of Canada Post. I was trying to think of an adjective for it, but back when I was a mailman. And I worked with a number of Christians. Some brought Jesus every day like a club, and some brought a presence. And let me tell you, the ones who left the biggest mark brought Jesus as a presence into the workplace, and not a club to criticize and point out how others were sinning, but just to be that blessing presence in the workplace. And, as however many, like 50, 60 of us worked in this postal outlet, maybe that's a little high, but there was quite a group of us that worked there together. And, the ones who had, I think, the greatest impact were not the ones who brought Jesus like a club.
Like talking about him all the time in your face, and
it's not even just all the time. What do you mean by it's like when whether it's Jesus or the gospel or religion or any of those sorts of generic terms come up, it's always this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, you're doing the wrong thing, this is the right thing, and it's very legalistic and rigid and in your face.
And that's what you mean by a club?
Yeah. Okay.
1 Timothy, Paul says, I was shown mercy because before I knew Christ, I acted in ignorance and unbelief.
Right.
And when we don't have that sense of grace, we hold people to this expectation of, I've been saved by grace through faith. And so I think God has called me to change my life, and so I'm raising my bar and standard of, what I think morality is, and then all of a sudden you expect others to jump that. You have to now raise to my level, right? And that's I think part of the problem, because I don't think that's a good thing. Yeah. It's not a bad thing to say, you know what, I think we can do better. Yeah. I don't think that's a bad thing. But to expect others to be jumping to that level that I've made, but to say, no, I'm going to be a fragrance of care and blessing, because that's where the serving and the care does come into act. But realizing that until people know the great love of Christ, it's impossible for me to hold them to that standard. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's more inviting versus shaming, I would say. Maybe is.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's.
No.
Almost
Thank
too
you for
elementary,
putting
but
words in my mouth.
No, that's good. I think, in fairness to former coworkers, both were trying to follow Jesus faithfully.
Yeah. Right.
You're right. They really were earnest about living out their faith in a secular environment. Mm-hmm. And there was a number of Christians, not just two, but two for me. I think of one who summed up one way and one who summed up another. And the one who was the regular faithful presence for Jesus, and I know I've shared this story before a number of times. He had a tragic death in his family at one point. Almost all of my coworkers came to the funeral. Wow. And I don't think that would have been the case if it was the other way around. Some might have shown up out of obligation. I think the Christian ones would have come. I don't know that so many of those who were very anti-faith would have come to that funeral where they heard the gospel clearly if it wasn't for the daily faithful presence of that particular individual.
It's almost, it's another upside down thing. It's almost counterintuitive. Like even in parenting, I find I want to squash the bad, right? Instead of inviting the good, or so what I'm trying to get at is, I tend to react the club way that you define the club way.
Right.
When in fact this other way is it's harder. It goes against our feelings sometimes, and it's more thoughtful, and it's but it's also more natural. It can become more natural and more loving, and I don't know. It's a tough. The wrestling match.
Throw something there.
Yeah.
One thing that I heard one time is that one of the greatest acts of love and power and strength that God shows in His fatherhood to us and in His holiness is restraint.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because the fact that He could squash us, and He chooses not to, and in grace seeks us out.
Yeah.
As a father, I could very easily and quickly squash my child because I'm bigger and stronger and can put them in their place, and I'm more experienced and I know what's right. But that's not good parenting to just stop it.
And I have to confess, I've done that.
I do it every week, and I feel like a jerk. And then I go back and I see, wow, God has been gracious with me, right? And
that's where it becomes a beautiful moment, because you go back and apologize to your kid, or sometimes appropriately.
Sorry, I'm just. I don't want to take away from your point, but in my head, I'm like, pastor and son wrestling night this weekend.
Can we tag team against our kids?
Could you still take them? Could you still? They're getting kind of big.
I know.
I know. I'm not even sure I could take Micaiah these days. She's strong and feisty. Anyways, but we love our kids very much, and we
between
serve
Christmas
them.
and New Year.
That's right.
Put out some mats here.
Tag team fathers against kids.
Anyways, you're absolutely right. Maybe just to end this off, some of the greatest ways we serve others is by bringing the presence of Jesus wherever we go. And
that's blessing people.
Which looks a lot like blessing people. And so on what is one of the coldest nights of the year, we will stand out on the side of the road, huddled together under a tent, handing out metal ornaments that may or may not freeze on contact with skin, and just say, we love you. We want to be part of your celebration. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different ways to do that, church, but we invite you to think about where has God put you, specifically your street, and how has he enabled you to bless and serve your neighbors, both in the greater community, but also really the specific, even down to where your dwelling is. And may that be a central part of your Christmas celebration as we anticipate the real celebration of Jesus come. And God with us, which is such a beautiful and important aspect of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Now, don't lose that, but we also want to talk about what's going on in this building over the next couple weeks too, because while there's lots going on out, community-wide, there's some pretty cool things happening at our church building in the coming weeks. And so we sort of alluded to earlier, this Sunday is the 11th of December. That I know is on all of your calendars because you're super excited to come and see the Christmas production that many children have been working very hard. And quite a few adults have been working very hard. We definitely want to, honor and acknowledge all of the parents who have been running lines with their kids and making sure they listen to the songs and practice dance moves in the, can we say that? In a Baptist church, and practicing the choreography in the living rooms and all of that's gone on. And it's going to be awesome and you won't want to miss it. And we expect this room to be full. So come early. It's 10 o'clock, but I'm not reserving seats for anyone. So you need to be here. Maybe for $50.
And the reason you need to be here is because we are also not necessarily live streaming that.
Right.
So with 14 head mics and different people doing different lines, it's almost impossible to get every single line on a full live stream, because once that's in, that's in. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to record everything that morning, and you will be able to catch it later on that day. So what we will do is we will record it, make sure all the voices are heard and all the lines are heard and everything is just together, so that these kids and us as a church can share this presentation with our friends and family and put it out there and celebrate what the kids have done together. So that's why we're saying a better experience and a more timely experience is being in this room if you're able. If you're not, we bless you and we will make that available eventually.
Now, you can also do both. Come on out, see it, and then watch it again later. And it's always fun to me to go into the analytics and see which videos are watched the most, and you just know that it's usually the kids' dramas are viewed again and again and again. And
kids' dramas and funerals are very high.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. I know my kids aren't watching funerals on repeat, but they are watching the dramas they were part of.
Exactly.
And so that's great. That's this Sunday, December 11th at 10 a.m. and later on YouTube. Definitely something to make sure you get to experience. Now, December 23rd is going to be a Christmas evening. I noticed when we were at Light Up that we are not the only church having a service on the 23rd, which is really fun. But we want to be careful that it is clear communication. So on the 23rd.
That's a Friday.
It's a Friday night. It's 6:30.
6:30.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else we need to know today about that service?
Somebody was a little bit confused and said, "Oh, so there's going to be like a banquet?" No, it's not a banquet.
Yeah.
It's an evening service.
It's like it's basically Christmas Eve, but a day earlier than what we've had for Christmas Eve services, but a day earlier because Christmas morning we're going to have a service as well at 10. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So come, and it's just 6:30, because I know some years we've done 2 on the night, but it's only at 6:30. We'll have more information as we get closer to it, but make sure we would love to have you join us to celebrate and worship together on the evening of the 23rd. One other thing about this Sunday is after the drama.
Oh, yes.
We are doing a quick turnaround in this room because it's going to become Gifts of Hope Central. And so if you are here on Sunday and you're able, we don't want to, I recognize we just talked for 30 minutes about serving, and now we're going to give you an opportunity to get serving.
Right.
We don't say that to obligate you, but if you are here and able and can help us stack chairs, bring in some tables, there's a few things to do, and if you're able to give some time to it, we'd certainly love to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. And I think that's actually my favorite thing about serving with people is that when you really get into it, you realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it's so fun.
You alluded to the light up, that coldest night of the year.
Absolutely.
Feel. And, it was fun just to be in that around with our hands freezing on the metal ornaments and, trying to warm our toes and everything. And just now we have something to remember.
Right?
You were there the longest. I think you were there, 4 or 5 hours in the cold?
Somewhere in there.
I came for 2 hours and I was frozen.
I definitely later got home, and as I was getting to bed, ready for bed, like an hour after I got home, I'd been home an hour warming up, and I'm like, I look like sandpaper. It was just my leg was all like, it was a cold night. It was goosebumps everywhere. But anyways, yes, together serving is a beautiful thing. Anything else people need to know this week about what's coming up ahead?
One more thing I would say is thank you to especially the ladies for their evening last Saturday night. They had a lot of people doing a lot of jobs and work, and it was a really nice banquet night, and
a lot of people, almost 100.
A lot of people, like pretty full room with all of our tables, and so thank you especially to our women's committee and to all the volunteers that they had and men in the kitchen, but it was a lot of planning months ahead, so I'm very thankful to them. So thank you to you for serving. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for spending some time with us today, and we want to just encourage you as you go and consider where you are planted to serve and how you can bless others, and we look forward to celebrating with you more in this season of Advent, and we'll connect again real soon.